Could the 2025 Rugby Championship be shaping up as the best we've ever seen? Welcome back to the channel. I thought I would open with that question on today's video because after the first two rounds, every single team played two, won one, lost one. It is set up beautifully. So welcome back. Give me your view down below. Do you think we're set up for one of the best Rugby Championships ever and potentially one of the most surprising with where it's set at the moment? Who do you think after two rounds is best placed to go on and win this competition? I'll give you all my views. I'm going to run through each team as well and give my thoughts on where they are at the moment after a couple of games. And you can have your say in the comments section. So like the video, subscribe to the channel. And as I've said already, welcome back. I can't wait for the rest of this. I said before the Rugby Championship that I was really looking forward to this year's competition because it looked tantalising beforehand. And I think the opening two rounds have only enhanced that, really. You look at the Wallabies going into South Africa and winning at Ellis Park, what an unbelievable result. And then the way in which South Africa responded, what they changed tactically to get the win in the second test, but there were still so many mistakes there that I think there's a bit of uncertainty around the Springboks, despite the obvious quality in that team. Argentina, I thought, were excellent in the second test against New Zealand. On their day, they are such a force to be reckoned with. The All Blacks themselves, again, like South Africa, some questions there, but no doubt packed full of quality. Like, it is just so intriguing. So who would you have at this moment in time as your favourites to go on and win it? And I'm a little bit torn here. My gut instinct says the All Blacks, but amazingly, I think there's a pretty compelling case that it's the Wallabies. Would you agree that the Wallabies have been the most impressive team in the opening two rounds? Now, this could be because they were starting from lower expectations. I think that's a part of it. We all probably expected the Springboks and the All Blacks to be the best two teams in this competition. And because they've been a little bit shaky in parts, we're maybe questioning them a little bit more. Whereas the Wallabies, losing the series against the Lions, a team that has struggled over the last few years, were our expectations lower. So therefore now, given the two performances we've had, we have a much higher appreciation of where they are at the moment. What do you think? But I think the Wallabies have been really, really good. I've been so encouraged by Joe Schmidt's team. And I think there is a pretty good case in terms of the overall skill level, the overall performances. They have been the most impressive team across the first two rounds, which I did not think a couple of weeks ago I would be saying. So my gut instinct says the All Blacks. I think there's a compelling case for Australia, but what do you reckon? And I suppose the final point on the balance of this competition and where all four nations are, to me, it makes November even more fascinating because what are Ireland going to look like with Andy Farrell coming back and being at the helm once again? France, who won the Six Nations, we know how good they are. I think we are going to get some unbelievable matches over November, particularly if we've got a Wallabies team and an Argentina team that are even more competitive than usual. We're going to get some absolutely blockbuster games. That's for down the track, though, in a couple of months. For the time being, let me talk about each team. Start off with Argentina. I haven't spoken about them too much on the channel over the last few weeks. I've been more focused on Australia and the Springboks. I've caught more of their games and spoken more about their team selections. Is it no longer a shock when Argentina beat New Zealand? It's still packaged up that way, isn't it? And I understand why. New Zealand were the favourites for the game at the weekend, but we have seen Argentina beat the All Blacks. We haven't seen them do it in Argentina before, which I always found a little bit mad that they'd done it elsewhere. They have now done that. Is it less of a shock? This is a team that have beaten the Lions. They've beaten England at Twickenham. They have kind of ticked off a lot of notable results. And perhaps we need to be giving them more credit. What I do think is becoming increasingly true, though, still, is Argentina the new France, and that you never know what you're going to get from them. Because they are still a side whose performances and performance level, I think, fluctuates quite a lot, which makes them great entertainment, makes them incredibly difficult to try and predict what they're going to do. But I thought they were awesome in that second test. I mean, Pablo Matera, I think I'm right in saying, I saw this on Twitter, I think it was that Pablo Matera is the only Argentinian who, in all their victories against the All Blacks, has played every single minute of it. He's played 80 minutes in all of those games. When he plays well, often Argentina play well, and often Argentina are winning. He is just so combative, so aggressive, such a good all-round back row player. He was excellent once again. Him and Julio Montoya are kind of the totemic figures, I think, in this Argentinian side. As much as they've got quality across the team, those are the two guys that you look at as kind of the heartbeat in terms of emotionally and quality. And Matera I thought was excellent. The other guy I wanted to mention was Del Guy on the wing. I thought he was excellent. And they've got so many good back three players. You look at it over the last few years for Argentina, they've had so many. I thought he was really, really good against New Zealand. The issue for Argentina, as we so often say, is consistency. If they find consistency, imagine the type of team that they could be. But boy, they've set themselves up nicely as they head into the rest of this Rugby Championship and 2 games against the Wallabies. Wallabies, Argentina, that looks a lot more interesting now than it previously did. Which brings me on to the All Blacks. Where are we with New Zealand 2 games into 2025? Second year of Scott Robertson. I'll be honest, I still can't quite work this team out on quite how good they are, where they are, what the questions are that are facing them. And I suppose on reflection, actually, it maybe puts into focus the job that Ian Foster, Joe Schmidt, when he came in and was part of the coaching staff for the World Cup in 2023, just what a good job they did of kind of answering a lot of the questions that I think have resurfaced perhaps under the All Blacks post-World Cup in 23, because it feels like there are questions over selection. I've seen or discussions and debates about what's the best back row combination. Is it Ardy Severa at 8 or should he be playing 7? What's the best thing to do in the centres? Does Billy Proctor need to be given more time or is it a different combination? What's the best combination in the back 3? Should Rico Ioane be back at centre or on the wing or not involved at all? It feels to me like there is a lot of uncertainty of what is the best team for the All Blacks and what are the best combinations, which are questions that they're going to have to try and answer. And then I also think that it perhaps comes back to the thing of they have just lost an element of consistency themselves. I still think this New Zealand team on their day can be excellent. And I think we saw that last year of some of the results they picked up in November. I think we will continue to see it this year. You still look at the matches coming up against the Springboks that they're winnable for both sides. But I think they've lost a bit of an aura here, the All Blacks, and I think they've lost an element of consistency and discipline. I know discipline has been a huge issue for them. Discipline to me is fixable. We saw it, they got 3 yellow cards against Argentina. I always think if a team's issue is discipline, personally, I think that is a very fixable problem to have rather than it be a skill error. And I still don't look at this New Zealand team and think they're not skillful. They still have brilliant athletes and brilliant rugby players, but at the moment, something just isn't quite going right. And I think they have lost maybe an element of the consistency and aura that we've seen them have previously. For me, I don't know, my gut still says that if you're sitting here right now, I think particularly because they've got 2 tests against South Africa at home, I'd still probably just about have them as favourites. But it is a Rugby Championship that has been blown wide open. And speaking of the Springboks and those test matches against New Zealand, ahead of this year's Rugby Championship, I mean, the Eden Park test was just like, you felt like it all came down to that and what an opportunity and history on the line. It still is, but they're not looking quite as rosy, are they? Because it's so wide open, I suppose. When I look at South Africa, the thing I think of is progression isn't linear, which we often forget in sport. You are not always on a single trajectory going up or going down. You do both things simultaneously sometimes, or one week you'll go up, the other week you'll go down. Progression isn't linear, and I think that's where this Springbok team is. They have been unconvincing to say the least, I think, in the matches that we have seen so far. Because even in that second test against Australia, the game they won, geez, they weren't convincing. Drop balls, they look clunky. I really think a big part of the reason they won the game on the weekend was because of the reduced, slimmed back game plan and Andre Pollard. And I saw some Springbok fans questioning Pollard, which really interests me. For me, it was so clear that he was a major reason of why they won that game. His tactical kicking, his kicking off the tee, it wasn't particularly adventurous or exciting game plan, but it got the job done. I do wonder whether that is what the Springboks approach the rest of this championship again, almost take themselves almost back to where they were around 2019, which I know they have come a long way since then with the double World Cup wins and winning the Rugby Championship and being the #1 team in the world, all that sort of stuff. But I just wonder whether we see them really go back to the kind of DNA of South African rugby. On paper, they still have a ridiculously strong team. I think those matches in New Zealand are going to tell us an awful lot about where this team is. I don't think it's time for panic, but potentially we are seeing a Springbok team that are just having a little dip, which is normal in a World Cup cycle. And Rassie Erasmus, of all people, would be able to ride that dip and get them progressing and building again ahead of the next World Cup in 2027. But certainly I think the Springboks are in a different place to what we probably would have anticipated ahead of this championship. Which leads me onto the Wallabies and the final team to talk about. I think they have been really, really good. I do think there is an element, which I've spoken about already, of your expectations of a team. Because our expectations were higher for the All Blacks and the Springboks, we're therefore more negative on them, even though they have the same record of, say, in Australia, because I think our expectations of the Wallabies wasn't as high. But I have been so encouraged by what I've seen from them this year. Physically, I think they are in the best place they've been for a long time. I don't mean injuries there, because my word, their injury list is absolutely brutal at the moment. I mean in terms of how they have fronted up physically. In tests 2 and 3 against the Lions, in these 2 games against South Africa, I think they've been excellent. And I think that has been the platform around which everything else has worked. The skill set in the back line is very, very good. And I think we've seen that particularly in the last 2 tests. And I just feel buoyed and encouraged about where they are and about where they're heading. The thing that could catch up with them, I think, is where they are in their season compared with the other teams, which actually has been a plus point up to now. I don't think there's any question the Lions tour has helped Australia in terms of the form they've been in for the first 2 games of this competition and the Rugby Championship. Does that catch up with them later down the line? We've already seen the toll it's taking in terms of injuries with Dylan Peach and Harry Wilson and Tom Wright, such a blow. The HIAs to Suolihi and Nick White, which can happen, but they have a pretty comprehensive injury list, particularly when you consider they're already on their 3rd choice 10 of the season. Does that catch up with them later down the line? But overall, I think Australia and this Wallabies team is in the best place it's been in for years, which makes it really fascinating heading into the home World Cup, but also with the change in head coach. Joe Schmidt is not going to be there too much longer. Les Kiss is going to come in. You're looking at that change now and you're thinking, is that coming at the wrong time for Australia? Or actually, is it the perfect time for the building blocks that Joe Schmidt is going to have put in place for Les Kiss to build upon? Those are maybe questions for another day. Overall, though, I think Australia can be really encouraged. And overall, I think this Rugby Championship in 2025 is set up perfectly. And I think it could be one of the most competitive that we've seen in years, because at the moment it's looking like all 4 nations are far more even than we've seen them in previous years. And on any given day, it's the team that turns up could win, whether it's home or away. Really looking forward to the next few weeks. Break this week, and then we'll be back in the week, 5th, 6th of September, around then, for the games. Australia against Argentina in Australia, and New Zealand against South Africa in New Zealand. Give me your view in the comment section down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.